Welcome to the U.S. latest news channel. Watch the video to the end to find out the current and breaking news about the Russian war in Ukraine. Fire crews are also continuing their work on the incident. It was announced that a kindergarten and a school in the village were also evaluated. Measures have been increased at a high level. Russia continues to make determinations about the explosion. Relevant the Rimvorozhny Joint Stock Company also made a statement on its website. According to the statement, the Navy's 6. It is noted that the main activity of the arsenal is security. Underlining that security should be kept in line, the company stated that the production of weapons and ammunition took place as an October activity after security was provided. Earlier, it was announced that Belarusian President Lukashenko and Vladimir Putin met and agreed on decommissioning a group of regional troops. Leader Lukashenko announced that they had agreed to the deployment in connection with the escalation on the western border of the Unity State. In these days, when the pace of the war is progressing, the Belarusian army continues to take the necessary measures. In this context, he does not hold back from acting jointly with Russia. In the event of an increase in the threat level, the government also stated that it will actively use this deployment that has been created. The government also announced recently that the basis of the group consists of the armed forces of the Republic of Belarus. Leader Lukashenko also previously announced that they are working on a number of projects to create this group. Belarus, which has been constantly holding joint exercises with Russia in recent months, is striking with its aggressive attitude. Some Western states that are on the side of Ukraine complain about this attitude of Belarus. The Western states related to the issue also displayed a threatening attitude in the form that we cannot extend olives to Russia forever. Russia, which is not affected by this attitude of Western states and NATO, seems determined to continue intensive bombing movements. Especially in recent days, Russia has carried out bomb attacks on many cities, including the Ukrainian capital Kyiv, decrying messages from the European Union, EU, and NATO. The European Union Commission decried Russia's missile attacks targeting several points, including the Ukrainian capital Kyiv. EU High Representative for Foreign Relations and Security Policy Josep Borrell called the attacks by Russia, which he described as barbaric. The 21st, he put his attitude to indicate that he has no place in the century. Speaking at the daily meeting of the European Commission, EU Commission spokesman Peter Stano expressed barbaric and cowardly attacks in which people walking to school or work in morning traffic are targeted. Calling the attacks a violation of international human rights law, Stano added that Russia will be held responsible for these and other war crimes. The Commission of the European Union also said that Russia United Nations he called on him to refrain from involvement in the brutal illegitimate attempted attack that violates the Convention and international law. Assessing the possible consequences of the army's participation in the war against the vast majority of the Belarusian people, Stano made it clear that he wants to keep Belarus out of the war by using the statements the direct participation of the Belarusian army in this war or any of its actions will be met with new and strong restrictive measures. The reaction from NATO against Russia's attacks in Ukraine was not delayed either. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said in a statement about Russia's attacks targeting civilians in Ukraine, "I met with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. We condemn Russia's horrific and indiscriminate attacks targeting civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. NATO will continue to support the brave Ukrainian people who are resisting the Kremlin's attacks, no matter how long it takes," the statement said. The developments in Ukraine have exceeded the extent of relations between the two Slavic countries from the very beginning and have decayed into a war decimated between Russia and the West in Ukraine. For a long time, the whole world has concentrated its attention on this region. It is possible to say that all other problems, especially Syria and Afghanistan, have been almost forgotten. Among the countries that are closely following the developments are the decadal Soviet republics. It is known that the Baltic countries have distanced themselves from Russia since their independence. Now it has been announced that they are constantly spreading anti-Russian propaganda within the EU. Belarus, especially President Alexander Lukashenko, is known to act together with Moscow because of the problems he has had with the West in recent years. The Central Asian countries, on the other hand, are very cautious about the issue they are following closely. However, it is claimed that the country that decries the most remarkable approach among these countries is Moldova. At the same time, the countries with the greatest concerns are Moldova and Georgia. As is known, Russia declared war on Ukraine on February 24, 2022 at 6:00 Moscow time. Although it should be stated in particular, this move of Vladimir Putin, which brought the whole world to its feet, has maintained its place on the agenda for months. The investigations conducted at the level of tension between Ukraine and Russia have been quite annoying over time. The response from Ukraine, where Zelensky sits in the leadership seat, was not delayed, saying that this unexpected move by Russian leader Vladimir Putin to the situation was decisively. After Russia's attack on Ukraine, dark clouds began to circulate over Ukraine. According to the researchers, the data are very demoralizing. While approximately 14 million people moved to other countries in Ukraine, it was found that the number of destroyed buildings in Ukraine was at least approximately 140,000. In addition, the estimated number of casualties was also determined by Ukraine. 29,916 people have lost their lives in the Russian war in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin's plans for Ukraine are mind-boggling by the day. We have been involved in the Russian-Ukrainian war, which is expected to end in a few days, for 8 months. Russian leader Vladimir Putin's plans for Ukraine are in full swing. For this reason, there is no signal from Russia that the war is over in the Ukrainian crisis. Besides, Kremlin said that in recent weeks they have seriously lost Russian soldiers in the field. After the Kremlin's stunning announcement, Russian President Vladimir Putin decided to announce a partial mobilization in recent months to increase the number of troops by pressing the button. However, all sanctions against the Russian economy continue at full throttle. Vladimir Putin remains determined not to stop his work on Ukraine in the slightest. On the other hand, it is not yet known how far Russian President Vladimir Putin was ready to go to win the war. Recently, United States President Joe Biden appeared on CNN television and answered questions. The statement made by the United States of America Joe Biden was quite remarkable. Fade think that Joe Biden will not use nuclear weapons. Russian President Vladimir Putin by Russian President Vladimir Putin noted that comments on the use of nuclear weapons found irresponsible and unnecessary. According to other predictions, Russian President Vladimir Putin may put into operation his plan to freeze the war by signing radical decisions in order to consolidate control over the territory of Ukraine. On the other hand, it should be especially stated and expressed that it is very curious when the tension between Russia and Ukraine will end decisively. According to other reports, it is probably predicted that the hot tension between Russia and Ukraine will end with the last big move decisively made by one side. For this reason, both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky's last big trump cards to end the war are being wondered quite a lot. Although Russia is increasing its pressure on Ukraine to fight with all its might, the battle has not yet been lost on the Ukrainian front. At this point, Ukrainian President Zelensky's moves against Russia are quite curious. In addition, the meetings, negotiations, and plans that the leaders of both countries will hold are topics that the whole world is eagerly awaiting. Russian President Vladimir Putin that needs to be specifically expressed in each of the AVR with the power of his entire army, and he implies that although Ukraine has decided to declare a focus on military mobilization, both in Ukraine and other forced migration of Mold that continues its commitment to the people of Ukraine, President Zelensky not to surrender to the army of their country, both on behalf of the Russian forces continue to work. It is at this point that a key step is expected to be taken. When the lockstep is taken, the war may come to the breaking point. In addition, it should be emphasized that the leaders of both countries are trying to analyze each other's weaknesses and shortcomings when they look at the picture in detail, and it is quite possible that we can say that they are trying to analyze each other's weaknesses and shortcomings. For this reason, a war situation is visible in which the one who makes a good move out of his good win, the one who will checkmate his opponent with good strategic planning, will declare victory at the end of the war. Because Russia thinks that Ukraine cannot be put under a clamp. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is careful to establish strategic plans day and night for encirclement from all four sides, now officially wants to seize Ukraine with the latest move. On the other hand, how long will the Ukrainian army hold out? Are the reprisals coming from the Ukrainian army in response to Russia's move at a sufficient level? We will consider them in detail. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to be informed of the developments at the speed of light.